welcome to the Empowered to Connect podcast, where we come together to discuss a healing-centered approach to engagement and well-being for ourselves, our families, and our communities. I'm JD Wilson, and I am the host of the show. And today on the show, we've got ETC parent trainer and friend of the program, Jesse Faris, and we're going to talk about what it's like to parent during a pandemic. So what are the helpful tools that we've seen, any practical tips for helping navigate virtual learning and setting up a virtual classroom in your house, which all three of our families have actually been doing. So for the Ottingers, Farises, and Wilsons, how have we seen the tools and practices that we talk about in ETC? How have we seen those come to fruition so far? What has not been working, which that could be an entire other series of podcasts, if we're being honest. And then we are also going to talk about the importance of taking care of yourself first to be able to offer your best work to your family, those you're caring for, organizations, etc. So before we do jump to the show, let me just again extend a heartfelt thank you to all of you who've been listening. I don't think that we expected to look up and see, a month or so into the show, listeners from 12 different countries listening to the show from a myriad of different states, and so around the U.S. as well. So thank you. Thank you for listening, for sharing, and for supporting the show. We have been really humbled to see the outpouring so far, and we're just getting started. We've got some really exciting stuff on the horizon for you. So before we get going, I'll remind you, if you have not rated or reviewed us on Apple Podcasts yet, please do make time to do that. It helps a ton and allows us to become more visible to those who might be needing to have the content of ETC in their lives. And so please do share that. Please share us on Facebook and Instagram as well if you are listening. And so, and then of course, please do go to the website, go to empoweredtoconnect.org, and you can let us know how we're doing on the show. We've got tons and tons of feedback after the Troy McPeak episode. And so that was super, super helpful for us. And we are looking forward to hearing back more and more as we go. So again, thanks so much for your support. Shout out to everybody in Ethiopia and South Africa and Ireland and Canada and everywhere else where you guys are listening. We're really grateful for you. So without any further ado, here's Tona Ottinger, Jesse Faris, and myself talking about parenting during a pandemic. All right, as we mentioned today, one of our guests today is Jesse Faris. Jesse's a parent trainer with Empowered to Connect, and also a good friend of both of ours. We also had Tona with us, as I mentioned in the open. And so just some background on Jesse. Jesse's got a BS in Human Development and Family Studies and a master's in Christian Ministry. She and her husband Nick have been married for 14 years, and they've got 2 daughters through international adoption. They're 10 and 6 years old. And they began studying ETC a decade ago and have taught ETC courses in Memphis for the last 6 years. And so Jesse is going to be a guest periodically here on the show as one of our parent trainers. And so we're grateful for you jumping in with us today, Jesse. How are you?
Thanks. I'm doing great.
Good. Well, I would love to kind of hear for you, your parenting experience so far during COVID. Has there been one thing in particular that has seemed to kind of rise as the most important thing for you as a parent during this pandemic?
I would say, I've been riding the Corona coaster with the rest of you, the COVID coaster, whatever we would call that. So, the word that comes to mind that's so important for me each day is tension. I'm just holding many things in tension, but I think self-care is probably at the top of my list as far as what I can do first as a parent.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's always obviously the imagery of like getting on an airplane and you're listening to the flight attendant give their talk, and they talk about the oxygen mask coming down and the importance of you putting the mask on yourself before helping other people. And for anybody who has any type of self-denial in their nature or ultra humility, wherever you think like, not me. I would help everybody else first because I'm just like that. I'm selfless. And then I think it's been this stage of parenting where I've really seen that in the true light of why we're told that, right? Like if we are not if we're not taken care of, we can't take care of. And we heard Dan Coley say that, a few weeks ago in our conversation. He talked about the power of being present, and that like a healthy me can lead to healthy family, but an unhealthy me cannot lead the family to a healthy place, right? So I think that's totally powerful. Tana, how about for you?
I think it's interesting that Jess would go straight to self-care, which is something that has been a deep struggle for me, if I'm really, really honest, over the last, 20 years of parenting. It's one of those things that I preach a lot and I'm not so quick to practice. And so one of the things that's happened with me over this season of COVID is, in some way, my excuse to not take care of myself has been taken away. Because while I'm with my children all day, there have been hours presented in my day-to-day. I'm not driving as much. I'm not, toting people here and there as much. And so, to be honest, I've been faced with the opportunity to decide, when I have margin, what do I do with that margin? And I have actually found myself taking care of myself better. So it's the stress and the tension is absolutely higher as a whole family unit. But I have actually been taking better care of myself over the last several months than I think I probably have in a really, really long time.
And have you noticed a direct correlation between that and like the environment within your family?
Well, I think if you ask my family, they would say, yes, actually, JD, look at my mom, who is happier and more playful and, is just more present because I have gotten even an hour more sleep than I normally would. Or in those times that normally I might be running in and out the door, I've taken a beat and I've cooked a healthier meal so that we have used the words in our family like Sabbath, like rest and sabbatical. Those are words that Mo and I are sort of saying to some extent. Their season, we could talk all day long, especially I think with Jesse and I, about the extra tension and stress that the season has afforded our family. And there is a lot of it, but it very much feels like a both and situation, that there is both this margin to decide, what do I need? And then the tension of some of the other people in my lives' needs are a bit higher than they might normally be. But yes, there's a correlation, 100%.
Exactly. And I would also add that that tension that we're holding is that we all have needs in our family. Some of our needs are a little higher than usual, but I would say that this is different than other seasons for my family because we are all in the house. My husband's working from home. I'm at home. The girls are schooling from home. And so whereas we might get our needs met through different people and in different places in other seasons, we are all having to make sure our needs get met here within our four walls of our home. And that has been unique.
Yeah.
I like that. Yes, unique. That's called. We're gonna call it unique.
I was trying to find
it's been unique
word for it.
I know. I love it. Of course you are. Thank you for choosing. It's unique. Yes. Agreed.
Circuses are also unique. That's what we found, is that there are just things happening in our house that I don't know how to explain. One thing for us that I have found, the aspect of working from home for me has been positive and negative each day. So there are days when I come out for a lunch break and the kids are like, "Are you off of Zoom?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm off Zoom. Yeah, let's go play." And so we'll eat lunch outside and get to hang out for a minute. And then that opinion violently turns when I say, "All right, guys, I've got to run back inside and get on Zoom." And they're like, "No, you're always working." And so my work hours have not changed very much from what they were when I would work away from their site, right? But like now that they're seeing me when I pop up to grab a snack or when I, walk through to see how they're doing or whatever, it has created this up and down. The up has been the breaks I would normally take at work to walk to grab coffee or to go just chat to coworker for a few minutes. Those breaks are now like, I'll tell you what, I do have 20 minutes. Let's go on a quick bike ride around the neighborhood. Let's go do that. And we're going to get our brains working. We're going to get blood pumping. And I don't have to smell good for my next meeting because no one's going to smell me except for you guys. And so that kind of stuff has been huge. And what I've seen is now this is going to sound utopian. I don't mean this utopian. I mean like maybe a 2% uptick in this, but like my level of connection with each of them has definitely grown when I'm able to prioritize getting little moments with them and trying to like do something that gets us moving. And so that's been for us one of the biggest things. I think the other thing is we've just we're all doing virtual school right now, and so we set up our guest bedroom is now the school room, and that has been really good because Elizabeth put so much intentionality into what that room looks like. So there's beanbag chairs, there's fidgets, there's usually essential oils pumping through the room. On high, and they've got little snacks, they've got stuff they can chew on, they've got headphones, and so they've got 6 or 7 different positions they can be in around the room where they're not interrupting each other, and they're able to kind of get their needs met. And if they need to like sit on the guest bed to like sit on something soft, or they need to sit on the floor, they need to lay on the floor, be on the beanbag, whatever. So that has made a big difference as well. Like we're now having to think through their sensory input like all through the day, and not just when they're here. So, I know Jesse, obviously, if you've ever sat in a class that Jesse has taught, one of the parenting classes, you will hear of Jesse's love for Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson and their books. And so one of the things that we have talked about offline that I would love to talk more about is they talk about physical presence and quality of presence. Jesse, would you mind kind of elaborating on that and maybe what you've seen related to that principle during this time?
Yes. Okay. So if you're listening, Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, I really love your material. And their latest book, The Power of Showing Up, I read it, shortly before all of this went down. And it was so good. I love this idea that, a lot of us feel like because we're in the same house all day that we are being present with our kids, but that's not as important as the quality of that presence is what this book talks about. And JD, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about you're in your house all day, you are technically present, but it's the quality of that presence when you're stepping aside from your responsibilities and truly paying attention to what's in front of you, to your kids, to the quality of that time together. And so I even find myself now being the facilitator of the virtual learning. We've got all these worksheets and assignments that I'm helping decipher. That's not really the quality of presence that I want to focus on having with my kids. And so it can feel like a lot, but being able to think outside of that and think, okay, how can I connect with my kids? Because what I'm doing, shuffling them around with this education, we can have moments and opportunities where I can insert quality and insert connection, but I need to be thinking outside of those limits, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As far as virtual learning goes, I think there's a lot of people who are in this boat right now and are thinking, and I'm sure the experiences are all over the place because personalities are all over the place.
Absolutely.
Tona, have y'all's kids started yet?
Yes. In fact, our 2 youngest kids are at the same school that Jesse's girls are at. And are actually 3 of our kids, our older one too, but our 2 younger ones are in the same lower school. So yeah, we've been this Wednesday, we're a week and a half in. And I feel like yesterday was like our very best day, quote unquote. I'm putting that in air quotes because what does that even really mean? And then today, just what's the opposite of that? We'll say it was unique. So okay, we can say it was unique. But It was interesting because, I for so many, and it could be dads or moms or grandparents or aunties or uncles even that are helping children right now virtually learn. But I do think it's, especially for those younger ones, it is as hard for them as it is for us, for them to suddenly think, oh, this is a time I'm supposed to be learning from you, instead of, this normal pace of engagement and interaction and connection that they're used to. So we've had to have a lot of like, okay, guys, hang tight just a minute, because I know normally when you ask me a question, we can go on a million rabbit trails to talk about all kinds of things. And I'm going to let you lead the way to exploring this topic or this idea. But in this moment, we actually need to get rid of, get used to this particular lesson. We need to get through this. And so anybody that's helping children right now do any kind of virtual learning, it may be that there's a scenario where the kiddo is having to adjust what they are receiving from the parent too. And so that's been something I've had to be really, really mindful of, is how do I adjust from that really deep engagement practices that we like to talk about here at ETC, where we're, it's child directed and it's child led, and we're doing whatever you want to do, to, oh my goodness, we actually have to just get this work done today. And that's
Right.
a major adjustment for them. And it's been a huge adjustment for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I'm just laughing. That's our story too. One of the things that we had talked about, parenting wise in this season is, we have to be careful not to let the guilt of yesterday or the fear of tomorrow steal away your ability to be present in the moment to meet the needs of your kids. And so, you mentioned that just now, Tona, that was kind of y'all's story. You had, best day ever yesterday, worst day ever today. Jesse, have you seen that happening, or are you, and I'll say something in just a minute, but have you seen that happening with you, and what do you do to fight against that?
Oh man, for sure. Well, first of all, we've got this thing happening where, I don't know about y'all, but it feels like a day in COVID time is like equal to 4 months, right? So all of this time period is just morphing and lasting forever. But I will say, in some aspects, it feels like Groundhog Day, so every day feels exactly the same. But I know, even as we were making choices about school, and many people in our country are still making choices about what they're going to be doing for school.
Right.
It hasn't started yet in some areas. And so I've been talking with friends in different states about, we've all got kind of this stuff that's happened in the past that's affecting our experiences and choices now. And again, holding that intention that, I know that I have an immunocompromised child in my home. And I also know that I can tend to freak out a little bit about medical things. And so how do I hold those two things in tension as I make choices for today? Or, we've got all of these fears about the future. They're not going to get what they need, emotionally, because they can't see people's facial expressions, or they're not going to get what they need because in-person teaching is better than virtual teaching. We've got all of this information coming at us from different angles. And to be able to step outside of what happened in the past and what is happening in the future, hold on to those things a little bit, but think about today and the choice for today. You're just making the best choice for today. And a lot of times it's not feeling like a best choice overall, if you could stand outside of time, but just with what you have, we're all doing the best with what we have today.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So there's a book by Timothy Galway, and it's, maybe we'll link it in the show notes. This is not any kind of sponsored thing to say, like, he doesn't know me from anybody, but he wrote a book in, I think, the 70s called The Inner Game of Tennis. And it's not just about tennis, but this guy was a tennis instructor, and one of the things that he found was what he felt like unlocked the whole world of instruction to him. And that was that when people focus too much on what they're doing right or what they're doing wrong, they screw everything up. But if you could do whatever you can mentally to get that person to just stay right in the moment and just do what they already know, they were superstars. And so he worked with a few people who know, and you can look up stories in this guy, and he has these, like, there are some like miracle looking sports stories that have happened. But Steve Kerr, who's the coach of the Golden State Warriors, was on, if you watch The Last Dance, he's on some of the famous Michael Jordan teams, and he was going through some shooting slumps and read that book. And one of the things that he mentions as a teaching tactic was, instead of focusing on, I need to make this many shots in this next segment of training, it was have somebody observe what it looks like you're doing wrong. And if there's anything you're doing wrong, focus on, one little movement of one hand or one ankle or whatever, and don't count your in route shots at all. You're just paying attention to what you're doing with that hand in that moment. And he went on a shooting tear that, it's that few have replicated in basketball. And so he just said what happened was, he said it freed him up to be able to just go out and just play and just shoot. And so I think the parenting equivalent of that for us is to go, I can't control what's coming tomorrow. Like, I have no control over that. I can't control what's happening yesterday. I can't control what's happening in 5 minutes. The only thing I can do right now is take all the information I've got in this moment, and we're going to make the best choice we can for today. And the great news is that at midnight tonight, today falls into an ocean, and then tomorrow, if I screwed this up today, I get to start all over tomorrow. And so I think the idea of just focusing on, is there one thing that you wish you could change about how you're parenting? Like, is COVID or has the quarantine situation, affected you in a negative way? So doing the self-work to say, man, what am I struggling with? What do I tend to be long or short-winded in? Are there tools I'm not using? Are there tools I'm overusing? And this is where having a kind of a partner in parenting really helps. And whether it's a spouse partner or whether you've got a close friend, sibling, parent, grandparent, whatever, if you can have some people who will be honest with you and share that, it gives you the chance to not focus on, I'm going to now become the perfect parent, but just, I'm not as present as I need to be. So now I'm just thinking about, hey, in this moment, in this conversation, I'm going to look in eye, I'm going to make eye contact. And I'm going to work on eye contact today for the whole rest of the day, because what we know physiologically is that eye contact does transfer into everything else that we do, right? So if we make good eye contact, then we will be more responsive to questions. Or I'm not a great listener, so I'm going to listen to every word that's said. And until there's a 2-second pause, I'm not saying anything. So I think that kind of self-work is really important. And so for me, I was eating entirely too much ice cream. Beginning of quarantine would happen, and I would not want to go to sleep, because as soon as I go to sleep, I'm back at work again, and I'm back in the throes of everybody needs me again. And so that nighttime, once Elizabeth fell asleep, and I'm just there with the remote and The Last Dance or whatever show I'm on Netflix or The Wire, whatever, I was locked in. And then I got hungry, so it's midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I'm just pounding ice cream every night. And that's just not good for a human body, right? Like, ice cream every night is not good for a human. It tastes delicious, but it will kill you. So I needed to change that up. And so now I've kind of focused on making that more of a reward. And it does help with every other area of life when I can do that. So,
hey, I'll say one thing that just came to mind as you were talking, JD. As human beings, we are the only being that has this brilliant brain capacity to think about what we're thinking about, and to have that inner voice, that back voice going. And so when I think about being present and what does it mean to show up, and we use these words like they're just the easiest thing ever, and it's just simply not. I mean, it is a skill that has to be practiced and honed. And so for anybody out there that's listening, that's thinking about this idea for the first time, I want to first say it's really important work, and it is simply just not easy. And by no means are the three of us saying that we're experts at being present. I mean, we're not. We misread our own cues all the time. We misread the cues of those that we love. But when we are here doing COVID, and when we are in the presence of our people for more and more and more time than we normally are, it does give us this opportunity, if we decide to take it, to awaken ourselves to pay more attention, to pay more attention to ourselves, to pay more attention to our people, to pay more attention to our children, and learn your inner voice, pay attention to it. And so it's really, it's hard, but it's not that complicated. It's something like my spouse or my partner or my child just did that, and something in me welled up, an emotion, a fear. I shut down. I wanted to get away. I got angry. And simply asking myself, I wonder why I did that. So when you're thinking about all this engagement with your kids, or, if we go back to just even the idea of schooling them and helping them get through the school day, if that's causing you to not like who you are after those 3 or 4 hours, then just practice asking yourself simply, I wonder why. I wonder. So being curious with yourself, I think, is kind of what I'm hinting at there.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And that's something I'm just realizing I'm having to do, multiple times a day, constantly. Just does that ring a bell to you too?
Oh, for sure. And I would say often I'm kind of, because I've been practicing this a lot, wondering about my thoughts and behaviors. A lot of the answers that come back to me are, I do tend to put myself last, or purposefully play the martyr. How many parents are just thinking about all the plates they're having to spin right now, so many. And I could probably do a whole podcast on just how tired I am of making lunch for everyone, but if I don't address that in myself, I think that is the next step for me, is just, okay, well, what do I need to do to meet my needs so that I can then meet my family's needs? And for me, that's looked like going on a walk every morning and being able to be curious about the day before or how I was feeling that morning, doing just a check-in with myself, spending a few quiet moments just on that walk. My girls are eating breakfast. They know how to brush their teeth and get dressed. And then when I show up, we're going to get started for the morning. But that's been, even that little thing has been so, so helpful to me.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people who are listening to this who are the primary homeschool teacher right now. They're the primary lunch maker. And then you get to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, classes are done. Then you're back to where you had started parenting before, right? So for the two of you, I guess, and Tona, you're in a little bit of a different spot because I know that you and Mo are both working and parenting simultaneously. Well, with y'all, it seems 24 hours a day, right? Because you have teens and little ones. So can you talk to us a little bit about I want to transition to talking more about the practical side of things here, if there are any practical tips or tools. But I wanted to start with you because I think there's a lot of resources about kind of little kid stuff that you can do for teens, for older kids that are during this time. There's obviously a large desire to go hang out all the time, go be with your people, all that. How have you guys handled that? And have there been any practical things that you've found that have been really helpful with your older kids?
Oh, that's a really good question. So maybe for those that are listening, in our home living currently, we have a 20, 19, 2 16-year-olds and 2 8-year-olds, and then my mother lives with us. So we are a household of 9 people. I think that, and this is going to sound so simple, but I really think it's about communication, like clearly communicating and taking the initiative to make sure things are communicated. And so setting expectations is really, 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 really important across the board in all the relationships in our family. And so, just a super practical example, really brass tacks. Before I left the house this afternoon to come and record this podcast episode and then to do a little bit of other work, I called a quick little family powwow with whoever was up and about in the kitchen. It was like a 10-minute moment where we just all communicated what everybody needed to do for the rest of the day. what people's expectations were for the night, how we were going to get through the next couple of hours. I made sure everybody knew what they needed to do. And my family doesn't always love it when, I start yelling upstairs and around, hey guys, everybody come to the kitchen. We need to have a quick minute. They're like, here she goes again, mom directing the flow. But I find it just goes so much better. If I had just sort of said goodbye and told everybody I was leaving and left this like void of nobody knowing what's expected, I needed to say, okay, two of the older kids, the young adults said, okay, well, this is what I want to do. Da, 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 da. This is what I need to do. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, got you. And then I gave them a timeline of like when we could support that happening. So I feel like it has given us, honestly, communications and expectations are like our lifeline. And then when we're doing that well, it helps us manage the multiple transitions that happen throughout the day, because what we know is that transitions can often be a major point of contention and pain, like pain points often for kids. Me too. It's hard for me to transition my mind from schooling to play, like you gave the example of that, JD. And then my brain is in play mode, and now I need to go get something, thinking about that for dinner. So how many times a day? It's exhausting for our brain to have to transition in and out of those different things that we're supposed to be thinking about. And then we know that for many children, transition from a preferred activity to an unpreferred activity can be a pain point. So communication, expectations, so that we can do our very best to manage there's 9 of us. How many times are we hundreds of transitions throughout our house happening in one given day. That's my thought. So older and younger, but really those older kids, they need to have a place to be heard. Their desires, their disappointments, their expectations, their feelings about their life not being what they thought it was going to be. There's got to be room in my day for my young adults and teenagers, to walk up to Mo and I's bedroom and say, I'm really sad about this tonight, or I'm disappointed about this, or this isn't going the way I thought it was going to go. And it does us like no relational good if I say, well, buck it up, Buttercup. Mom's not happy about it either. That's not going to work out for us relationally. So to sort of say, honey, I know, can you tell me more about that? Like, I'm so sorry that you're feeling that. So showing some empathy and compassion to those older kids. Okay, so actually I have a lot of things. Expectations, communication, transition, and compassion. How about those for my takeaways?
That is great. I think that is really, really helpful. Last question. We'll just keep on that same topic, but for you, Jesse, with younger kids, and you guys are needing to stay at home or kind of as a unit in a bubble together, what have been your kind of secrets and what's worked in a way that has surprised you maybe? Why don't you share, and with the caveat that, of course, this isn't going perfectly. We're not, holding you up as the example of like, if you need to know how to raise a 10 and 6-year-old, look at Jesse. Like, we're all struggling here, but like, what are some of the small wins you've seen, or the things that have become really important for you guys?
Well, we talk about this all the time in our ETC courses. Just for my husband and me, Nick and I tag team a lot. And so with him working from home, he has kept similar office hours like you have, JD, where, he is still at work. He's just at home downstairs in the guest room at work. And, but we have been able to tag team in this season, which I think has been a key to everyone's success. That ensures that the person that's with the kids is with the kids, and not trying to multitask, which we don't do so well. Some people are good at that. We just aren't great at that. So to be able, for me to go take a walk and Nick's got the kids, when I come back, I've got the kids. My mom is in our bubble, and the girls have really spent a lot of time with my mom in this season. That's been really helpful to us. Not everybody has that, but just being able to make sure to negotiate everyone's needs has been really helpful. And then even with little kids, I have found the need for those check-ins about expectations, disappointments, feelings, just like Tona was talking about. And with my 10-year-old, we've talked a lot about she's got a strong feeling of justice. So just that idea that some people aren't doing what she's doing, and how she feels about that.
Yeah.
Well, she can see through her window, so and so neighbors are doing this, and she's not allowed to do that. So we talk a lot about, me not defending our stance as parents, but just how she feels about how hard this season is, how lonely she feels. And then talking about how can we meet those needs? If you're feeling lonely, how can we meet your need for connection with other people, and talking through that with her. I mean, we talk about it as adults, self-care, but how do we help our kids start learning how to care for themselves? And even just this weekend, we wrote a list with our 10-year-old of what are some things that you feel really happy when you do those things, and they don't require your friends to do them with you, or even necessarily a parent to do them with you. What are some ways? Basically, we were coaching her. What are some ways you can start taking care of your needs, and how can we help you with that? And then I would also say, with our 6-year-old, she's a very cheery personality, and she's very averse to talking about negative feelings. So if any of our parents listening if any of our parents listening or parents themselves feel that way, I have had a lot of conversations about how Bunny feels about something specific versus my daughter, Brooklyn. We had a hospital stay back in May, and it was super not fun, kind of traumatic for everybody involved. And the week afterwards, I could tell she was struggling to process that. And whenever I'd bring it up, she literally said to me, y'all, that's in the past. I don't want to talk about it. And, wow. So we would, during our before bedtime times, I would just start saying, well, do you think Bunny would talk about it with me? I would say, how does Bunny feel? Because Bunny was in the hospital with us. So how did Bunny feel about being in hospital? And, it was so interesting how I think Bunny's feelings were really similar to Brooklyn's. So
right.
Just the way that
surprise. Bunny had feelings.
I think you can process feelings with really young kids by playing with stuffed animals, or playing pretend, or let's play COVID. You can be the mom, let's play quarantine. You can be, how can we help our kids express their feelings, find out their needs, even in covert ways through play, or in how they're just expressing themselves? We've made a lot of art together, and I think those routines have been key for us as well, especially with transitions. I mean, we write on our bookshelf glass doors every day, the subjects that we're responsible for in that school. And then the girls wipe them off with a sock each day.
Oh, that's good.
And even just them being able to visually see, okay, I'm this far through my virtual school day, has been really helpful for them. They get to get a gumball halfway through when they're halfway through their work. And that's good sensory input as well. So just little things like that, I think, are really helping us.
That's awesome. I'll say, kind of in conclusion, what's worked for us, we were just struggling with the house, just being a pile of trash constantly. And there's everywhere you looked, there's just stuff everywhere. And we would suck it up, kids go to bed, we'd be like, all right, let's just straighten up real quick. And then it's 11:30 and we're falling asleep, and we'll put the news on and we'll wake up the next morning and everything's TV's still on and we're just like drooling, like it was not good. And so we just we're both kind of we both had some real low moments emotionally. And so I think what it led to is then Elizabeth, and she's been so awesome at this, but she created kind of chore sheets for everybody. And she said, hey, we're going to have daily chores. You're going to have Saturday chores, which we already had as a thing that we fought over every Saturday. We already had that as a thing, but we walked through daily chores, and then we did mealtime chores. So like, hey, after each meal, one kid goes and takes care of the dog stuff inside and outside, which they hate that part of the job. And then another person wipes table, another person sweeps. And then while they're doing that, That way we can knock out the kitchen real fast so that you're not coming down after bedtime to just seeing open food on the counter, which there is something psychologically that just changes everything when that happens. And then the other thing for us has been, like I mentioned bike riding, but we've just got really physical kids. Like they just love doing things with their bodies all the time. So we have a huge tree in the backyard that had a rope swing on it, like a little woven, swing on it. They had grown sort of bored with that, but also you have to have another person to push you on a rope swing. And that's not always accessible based on when your school breaks are. So I took a little gymnastics ring that we had for like exercise stuff and tied it up there. And they've now figured out that they can climb on top of some of the play structures in the back and Tarzan or whoever you want to name, they can launch themselves off of that and go swinging through the backyard, like flying all around. So what they don't know is, that's giving them a crazy good workout. Like their core strength is improving, like their flexibility is improving. Their risk mitigation is improving. Like they're realizing if I go straight, I got to keep my legs up or I am slamming into the fence, And so all of that to say that's become a great brain break is I've got 20 minutes on the next session. Cool. You're not allowed inside. Get outside. Go outside, go play. And because that's out there now, it's a fun new thing for them to do. We put a pull-up bar inside in the boys' room, and it's now become a gymnastics final swing-off thing. And so that's the term, right? Final swing-off thing. Yeah. So that's been for us, Tona.
I want to piggyback on that, JD, and say I'm so glad you brought that up because I have been, talking with a lot of parents about how to just successfully navigate these days at home. And anytime I'm talking to any of them, I am immediately asking them about in the language of ETC, do you have a sensory rich environment? And really talking about seizing how much good it does the brain and body to even do 15 minutes of hard body workout.
Yeah.
And so we have done just a couple of things, and I know not everybody has, space or capacity. So, I'll tell you a few of the bigger picture things that we've done, but those, you don't have to have equipment to do some of what we've done. But we have literally made some very strategic decisions in our family to just for everybody's wellness. So we've, for the older, because there are some older people in our house, right? There's a lot of us that are 16 and older. So today, Mo went and met somebody and I bought a punching bag off of Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're, resetting up a little workout area and
I'll be right over.
Right. So I know it's really the punching bag might be for mom, but, just some proprioceptive input. If there's any of us that just need to get it out of our body, in a constructive way. And we have exercise equipment and a treadmill and a recumbent bike and weights for the older people. And then we've done some things in our backyard. I went to a little kind of it's called Five Below. I know not everybody would have that, but I ran by Five Below this week and it's a Dollar Tree or Dollar General, that kind of store. And just bought a bunch of balls that were $2 a piece and threw them on the trampoline. I was like, The trampoline's fun again because now there are 10 balls on the trampoline. And PE, because our kids are used to being in the structure of school, we've called things like PE, which means it's parent instructed, physical activity, and you're going to do whatever, mostly it's Mo he uses his quick work breaks to do PE.
Yeah.
And then he gets to say, we're going to play a game. And it's just to absolutely regulate them. And then wherever your learning environment is, as you said, Liz did, JD, creating, space to do that comfortably, bean bags or fidgets or, our kids have made foam and slime already the last week. So when you have, if you've got any creative energy right now in you at all to think about how to put towards a successful day, I would recommend that physical sensory needs met would be at the top of how you spend your creative energy right now. So think about what are some indoor ways we can get their bodies moving, and then what are some outdoor ways we can get their bodies moving, and then work that into your schedule. So yeah, Jess, are y'all kind of finding the same to be true?
I would just, this is going to be funny, y'all. I hurt my back the week after I turned 40. And we're not going to get into that, but I had to back off of a lot of physical activity. And so the lazy version of this is that all the things that I can't do because of my back right now, I'm getting my kids to do for me, and which is basically all heavy work, right? So how great is that? Like, I didn't build anything in my backyard, but my kids are carrying the laundry downstairs, and since it's to help mom's back, they're a lot more willing to do it than if they were supposed to do it,
Yeah.
So,
Yep, I love it.
Bring in the boxes in from Amazon Prime, or any of that heavy stuff is a great break in your day, just because it's a lot of proprioceptive work.
And some of these things are going to sound expensive, like building stuff in the backyard, or, making a room just for school stuff. I mean, if you are good on Google, like Dr. McKinney said the first episode, like, I trust your Google skills. If you're good on Google, you can find hacks to do everything cheap. You can find printable, like our little chore sheets were printable chore sheets that we got that, cost us whatever it cost to print a piece of paper at the house. And then, it was a swing in the backyard for us, because that was something that was like an asset for us. We had a tree we could do that with. And so if it's not that, look up, there are all kinds of, YouTube PE classes that happen, where you've got PE instructors who put together like fun music in a 10-minute, like, you don't need any extra equipment routine. So, I would say Google is your friend, and you can Google the dumbest things you ever think you need, like how to help kids get energy out, and you're going to find some gold there, here and there. But, I think the biggest thing is like being resourceful. So if that's not something that seems like, well, I can go out and buy that or take care of that, man, get to work on Google and find it. Yeah, Tona.
On Pinterest, I literally said, in Pinterest, I said second grade recess ideas, and started a pin board, and my Pinterest feed was full of them, and none of them were money, or may have been use something you have on hand, a ball you already have, or print one thing, or maybe you have one hula hoop. There's all kinds of ideas. So, I absolutely agree with, you don't have to let funding or finances get in the way. To me, it's a bit more of a mindset of sort of deciding that there is value in body work. And then, as Jesse gave us creative ideas, have them do it in the day-to-day. One of the occupational therapists that work with us here in Memphis, she is fantastic about that. I want to come up with this like sensory diet that includes all these like extra fun ideas. And she and I were talking one day, and she talked about how she finds it families are much more successful if you give them tools on how to put the work into the day. So, for example, if it's a break from school, then have them stand up from their chair and twirl 5 times as they're walking to go get their lunch. It doesn't have to be something completely different. And so it's a moment to be creative.
Yeah, totally.
Setting your mind to saying, using their body in these moments is going to help everyone have a better day. You too, parent. And
can I say too, I think this is also part of the tension, because, for our parents that haven't started school yet, and if you're like me, you go through this little stage where you are pinning everything on your Pinterest board, and you're trying to figure out your exact perfect virtual education setup. And there's all this pressure and ideas, which are great. And I think I've had to hold that intention with what JD was talking about earlier, which is just trying to focus on the next moment, right? I mean, when you were talking about that sports analogy, it was reminding me of when I played tennis in high school. I'm a terrible athlete, y'all. I've tried every sport. I'm terrible at all of them. And my tennis coach, bless his heart, was like, there's no way this girl's ever going to win a game. So this is the strategy. The one tennis strategy he gave me was, as long as you return the ball, that you can't lose.
Yeah.
As long as you, right. So isn't that like the idea of being present? Like, on one hand, we're thinking intentionally. We're thinking outside the moment of all of these strategies, thinking ahead. And then on the other hand, intention, we're holding, just do the next moment, just return the ball. And if things are super overwhelming to you and all the plans and the Googling is too much, just sit down what you're doing, take some deep breaths, and go be with your kids for 5 minutes, And I think we can overcomplicate it sometimes. Our kids want us. They want us. It's great when we can provide the sensory input and the best education and all of it. But ultimately, they want a safe adult they can attach with.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Girl, you are preaching it. You are preaching it. You're right. That's it. There is this whole attachment idea called serve and return. And it just came to me as you were talking about that, because
That's
that really is
awesome.
the foundation of how you build healthy attachment. Even in infancy, like a child serves a facial expression to you and you give it right back to them. You know, a child engages you and you meet them with the presence that they've given back to you. So you serve and return to build healthy attachment. So it literally is a tennis analogy. So Jesse, I really feel like you just hit it home. You're right. I mean, we can have creative ideas, but at the bottom level,
and we need them. I need the creative ideas, but yeah, you're right.
But they fail us often, right? In our worst of days, we don't have access to them, but you always have your presence.
Totally.
Absolutely.
That is so true. Man, this has been really helpful and really good. And thanks, Jesse, for coming, and Tona for being here. And we would love to know what you think about this. And so if there are things that you felt were ultra helpful during this episode, if you want to let us know, that's great. Maybe we can use those in some of our other resources that we're putting out here in the future. If you've got other things that you're like, you know what, this was my best, this is the thing that worked best for me. We would love to know that. So wherever you find the episode, whether it's on, you see it posted on Facebook, or if you're on the ETC website, if you're finding it on Apple Podcasts, whatever, feel free to leave us a comment with what you're doing that's working, because you never know who might see that, and it might be kind of a salve or like a saving grace for them that day to get a good idea that somebody else has used. And so we'd love to know your feedback on that, what's working for you. Maybe don't post what's not working, because we don't need that kind of downer right now. There's no wanted ads there.
Positive ideas. Positive ideas.
If you've done something that's not working, I've probably done it too.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't. Right. We can leave that in the past squarely, and we don't need to process that. We would love to know that. Also, remember to like and share the podcast if you can. It really helps us to be able to be visible on different charts and stuff for those who might be looking for this content as well. So thanks to our guests, thanks to Jesse, thanks to Tona